So we're going to be learning today about the Ner Tamid and the Aish Tamid, and also about burnout. As we're approaching Pesach, you might be experiencing some burnout. You might feel overwhelmed. You're thinking about cleaning. You're thinking about Yachnas, like how are you going to transition from Shabbat next week into Seder? You might have a lot, and you might already feel burnt out, and we haven't even started Pesach. So we're going to get some clues from the Parshiot on how to combat burnout. Pretty cool, huh? All right. So can someone read what the Kol Bo says about Ner Tamid? Can I have a volunteer?
Just starting with Kol Bo. Kol Bo, late 13th century, anonymously published, attributed to Aaron ben Jacob, records that the Ner Tamid was a universal custom, and that the reason for the light is to give honor to the divine presence that rests wherever a quorum of Jews gather to pray.
Fantastic. So Ner Tamid, we often see it in front of our Holy Ark, Aron HaKodesh, in our prayer spaces. And it seems that by the 13th century, it was pretty standard, but we really don't have any records of it before then. So it's idea that we have now that we take for granted. We think it's going to be wherever we go to pray. But it seems that before the 13th century, it wasn't so common. And then all of a sudden, it became the in thing. Everyone wanted a Ner Tamid. And it's to show that there's a light from the divine presence wherever a quorum of Jews gather to pray. And that's reminiscent of the idea when we built the Mishkan, a place, the sanctuary for God to dwell, and the divine presence rested. So that's beautiful, this idea of a minyan, and that wherever we gather to pray, it's like we have our own sanctuary and time. Now, is the Ner Tamid based on the Aish Tamid or Ner Tamid in our Parshiot? It's pretty interesting. First of all, what is Ner? Candle. And Tamid? Always, right? And we're going to look at that now about always. It can also mean continuously. It can mean regular.
But notice the word here is very interesting. It's wherever, not whenever, because wherever means you have to keep sanctifying the place, even if 10 Jews are not there. Whenever is only when 10 Jews are there would you light the candle. So the Ner Tamid should, as it were, burn even when the Jews are not there.
That is so beautiful and profound. Thank you. This idea that what does it mean to be always or continuous? And is it calling in the 10 Jews or is it because of the 10 Jews? It's like a lighthouse in a way, beckoning them to come in and holding that space of sanctification even when people are not there to have that download. So we're going to look at our first source in Leviticus 6, or Vayikra 6. And the fire on the altar shall be kept burning, not to go out. Every morning the priest shall feed wood to it, lay out the burnt scent offering on it, and turn it into smoke, the fat parts of the offering of the peace offering of well-being. A perpetual fire shall be kept burning on the altar, not to go out. Similar to what you had just spoken, dear Rabbi, that the candle is there burning always, and it's being there as a divine continuous source that is happening. We also see there's something here that the priest is feeding it wood to keeping it going. So when the quorum is present, the minyan is present, it keeps it going, the physical light with the spiritual light. And so you can see the highlighted Aish Tamid in the Hebrew that shows there this perpetual or continuous or regular light. Does someone read the Rashi on Leviticus? Yeah. Thank you, Joey.
The word tamid is redundant, for without it, the sentence would imply that it must be continually burning, since it states that it must never go out, references which fire about the use of which the expression tamid is used vis-a-vis that by which the lamps of the menorah were kindled, with reference to which it is said, to light the lamps continually, this too should be ignited from the fire on the outer altar.
Fantastic. So the Tamid would seem to be redundant or repetitive here. And so Rashi is linking it based on other sources that we have, that the Tamid is linked to the Ner Tamid or to the menorah. And so there's something that these two items are linked and joined, and that probably the fire that we have from the Aish Tamid is used to ignite the Ner Tamid, which also is supposed to be continuously burning, But we'll see soon that it actually wasn't always continuously burning. It was actually built into a ceremony that it was actually had to be lit, a part of a very special ceremony that we'll talk about. So in source 3, you shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting for kindling lamps, regularly or continually. So that's just the reference of here what we have about the Ner Tamid and linking them. Any questions? Any thoughts? Yeah.
So when we think about the Ner Tamid, should we always think of oil lamps instead of wax candles?
Ah, yes. Yeah, the menorah would originally be used with oil. And we get candles because when climates where it's too colder, the oil actually congeals and becomes a solid form. So in Israel during Hanukkah, it's very common to see Hanukkiyot that are all with oil. And also my Hanukkah that I have here in California, I buy oil to put in it. So it's a very good question. And so this leads, it's like you're a plant. A segue is, so you just like put new oil on top of the old oil and with the wick in there? Like what ends up happening if you just kept putting new oil into the oil that's already burnt down, that might have an used wick in it that gets dirty? Is that very fire safe? Does that seem like a way to have holiness connected to the menorah? No, we'd actually have to like clean the old oil out before putting in new oil to keep it pure oil and to ensure that for fire safety, just ensure the purity of the flame, and also to refill the wick. So it couldn't be continuously burning because the old oil would have to be removed and cleaned out. And there's an urban legend that sufganiyot, that spongy donut, is what the sponge looked like that the high priest would use to clean, or the priests, the old oil out and put the new oil in. And that's why it's the treat that we eat during Hanukkah. So how would it go about that they would clean out the oil? Would all the candles go out? All the oil go out, all the wicks? Or would it be a certain, like 1, 3, 5 they would clean? So Maimonides has some thoughts for us on this, and let's look at it together. Can I have someone read source 4?
What is meant by the expression, the removal of the ashes of the menorah? Every lamp that has burnt out should have its wick and its remaining oil removed, and it should be cleaned. The priest should place another wick and other oil in it, using the half-log measure. The wick and oil he removed should be placed in the ash heap near the outer altar, together with the ashes removed from the inner altar and the outer altar. He should kindle any lamp that was extinguished. Kindling the lamps is what is meant by the term hata'ava. When one discovers a lamp that has not been extinguished, he should restore it. When the western lamp becomes extinguished, after the ash is removed, it should be rekindled only from fire from the outer altar. When any of the other lamps are extinguished, by contrast, they may be rekindled from each other.
All right, so what Maimonides is sharing is that the wicks would be very long wicks and that they would catch on fire from one another. So they acted almost as themselves as a helper candle or a shamash, how they would catch each other. But the westernmost wick had to be lit from the continuous altar, from the Aish Tamid. And you might be wondering, what does it mean, the westernmost candle? So there's a debate about what direction the menorah faced. Was it at an angle or was it east-west? But whatever was the westernmost candle, that was the one that had to always be lit from the Aish Tamid, and that could then kind of light the others. And that was they all lit each other and it lit back, that the flame from the continuous fire would actually, if we want to think it as a physical flame or spiritual flame, would be connected to all the wicks. And we can see this tradition is still held by us today. When we light the Hanukkah, which candle do we put in first always in the Hanukkah? Is it on the right or the left? The right. We always put the right candle in, right? Was that right? Yeah. And so many, there's much commentary around this, but it's often believed in many sources that before we even had Hanukkah, as we think of a Hanukkah, and we have the debate of Hillel and Shammai of lighting, is it starting with 8 and going down or starting with 1 and going up? That there was some kind of a holiday of light that already was happening where we lit one candle, and that was linked to this candle to the right, or westernmost candle. So it's pretty fascinating. There's something about that candle has to come from the Aish Tamid and about the wicks. Okay, so let's learn a bit more about what is going on around this. Does someone want to continue on for us? Yeah.
How are the lamps of the menorah kindled? One should pull its wick out until he kindles it from another one of the lamps. One must extend the wicks because the lamps are permanently affixed within the menorah, and they may not use another lamp because that would be disrespectful. All of the substances that are forbidden to be used as wicks on Shabbat are forbidden to be used as wicks in the temple for the menorah. This comes from Exodus 27:20, which states, to raise up a continuously burning lamp, the flame must rise up on its own.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Schatz. So we can see here that about the wicks were quite long and how they would light each other. And we know, fire is hot, the menorah is hot. And so this is also a hot take by Maimonides. He believed that the lamps were actually permanently fixed to the menorah, but other commentators believed they were removable, that made it easier for them to clean. And there's also where it's linked about the tongs and the vessels and the lamps. It says somewhere else in the previous parshiot. So it seems that they were removable, but Maimonides believes that they were actually all connected. So that means that this whole process, the ceremony, would be extra difficult, but it was also an extra honor. And the ceremony is called, as the term above, hatava. And there's something very special about this ceremony, about what is happening and how it's going to be drawn out or elongated, because it's very prestigious. I think it's also here interesting to note about the wicks that are about connected to Shabbat. You want it clean burning and continuously, and the flame must rise up on its own. So around this physical light or spiritual light. I think that there's certain kind of wicks that can kind of, they don't burn so clean, but they actually then to have a combustible material in them. So it's not the flame, it's being influenced by an additional level of kindling. So it's not a pure flame. There's something about the flame. When we think about light, about in creation story, there was the spiritual light, separation of light and dark, and then there was physical light. So there's something going on here that's a combination of both, perhaps. Somewhere the last paragraph on Maimonides for us. We're going to be finishing soon.
The priest would not kindle all the lamps at once. Instead, he would kindle 5 lamps and make an interruption. In the interim, another service was performed. Afterwards, he would re-enter and kindle the other 2 in order to attract the attention of everyone in the temple courtyard. Whenever one of the lamps of the menorah was extinguished, he kindled it from another lamp, as we explained. What is the order in which they were kindled? The priest who merited to remove the ashes of the menorah entered the sanctuary carrying a vessel referred to as a kuz. It was made of gold and resembled a large pitcher. He would place the wicks that were extinguished and the oil that remained in the lamp in it. He would then kindle 5 lamps and leave the kuz on the second step of the 3 steps positioned before the menorah and depart. Afterwards, he would re-enter and kindle 2 lamps, take the kuz in his hand, prostrate himself, and depart.
Amazing. So there's something about not needing to do the whole ceremony quickly and to burn oneself out, that there was pause and space in it, and it added reverence to the whole experience and attention to the menorah as gaining the attention of everyone that was in the courtyard. And I think this is just important as we moved into Pesach. We feel like this energy of spring, and we might want to move really quickly, and we might want to clean the house and do spring cleaning and get rid of chametz, and maybe not talk so nicely to other people and ourselves because we're in a rush. But there's something beautiful about the ceremony of lighting the menorah, of pause and slowing down, and how we can even think about that as the search for chametz in our house, how we can do it slowly with intention. And what's really behind it, it's not just cleaning out physical chametz, but also cleaning out the metaphysical inside of us, anything that we need to clear out. So internal and external spaces matched. As we've seen here with the match that lights the fire, that it's not just a physical, there's a spiritual light. And I think it's also just amazing to know that the menorah always wasn't continuously lit. There might be the one lamp or flame, but it wasn't that all had to be burning at once. It didn't have to burn itself out. And when we might feel burnt out, that we always need to be on the go and always lit. But we have this Aish Tamid, which can be like the Ner Tamid that we have today, that can attract us and call us in and bring us to want to convene in a minyan. And about the Aish Tamid too, it would burn through the whole night, but it would burn low in the morning. And there also was a priest that would come and clear away the ashes, and it was seen as a sacred ceremony. Now you might be wondering, where do we get this idea that something should be continuously burning? And what does it mean it's continuously burning but shouldn't be burnt out? If we turn to the last source, source 5. Does someone want to read it for us? You might recognize this source.
I bow to the rabbinical authority. Okay. A messenger of God appeared to him in a blazing fire out of a bush. He gazed, and there was a brush all aflame, yet the bush was not consumed. Moses said, I must turn aside to look at this marvelous sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? When God saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses, he answered, here I am.
Pretty cool, huh? The burning bush. The burned bush, but it wasn't consumed. It wasn't burned out. And we see that there's many stories around the burning bush. Had it been burning from like the dawn of time? Had it been burning for a year beforehand? Had others walked by and not realized it? But there was something that Moses was aware of everything around him, and also paused and took the time and turned to see that it was burning but wasn't consumed. It could have been other people saw a bush that was burning and was like, okay, whatever, it's burning, I won't get water to put it out. Maybe they didn't even notice it, but something that Moses slowed down and took the time to notice the mystery that it was burning but wasn't burnt out, that turning, and then God called to Moses. Once Moses paused, God could call out, and we just had for the Shabbat, Vayikra, and the whole book that we're in, and he called and God called out. So you should be also like listening for the call. Moses also was paying attention and also listening. And he responds, Haneni, here I am. And as we're moving into Pesach, I hope that we all can have our Haneni moments and know that the moments of Haneni are when we actually slow down and take time to look what's going on around us and listen for our call.